My name is Augusto Zampini. I'm a priest from Argentina, but I work for the Vatican for a dicastery that is which is kind of ministry that is called for the promotion of integral human development. So this is the president of Cardinal Taxon, which is very close to the Pope, and I'm a director of development and faith.
Why is an event like this important to the dicastery?
The G20 Interfaith meeting is, in my opinion, extremely important because when the most powerful politicians on earth, particularly from an economic perspective, gather together to think about sustainable development and a secure future, they cannot do it without the majority of people, more than 80% of people who claim to have some kind of faith. So if you want to promote sustainable development or a secure future, secure a good future, you need to listen to the voices of the majority of the people who believe in something. And secondly, normally the major religions and faith-based organizations, they work in concrete development programs in the ground. So they know the people, they know those who suffer from natural disasters, from poverty, from migration, refugee camps. They know all those who are poor in urban, in the big cities particularly. So, and they don't walk away when a big problem arises. Today we are listening to the example of Haiti, but we can talk about Rwanda, or who were the people who remained there on the ground helping people? Well, religious ones, mainly the Catholic agencies, Christian agencies, and Islamic agencies. So, and other religions too, but we are there where the people in the middle of the problems. So it's good to listen to the perspective of these people, because otherwise, if you are the risk of being a politician of an important country is that you're so distant from the reality of the poor that you cannot actually design good policies to tackle poverty. So this is the second thing. And the third one is because actually they have really good proposals, even from a global political agenda perspective. For example, the longer we wait to address climate change, the more costly economically it will be. So even if you want economic growth, you have to think, well, hold on a minute, if you don't address this with concrete policies, in a couple of years it will be extremely costly, and the gap between rich and poor countries will increase, and it will be very difficult to rule the world. Secondly, they were saying, what about the refugees and migrants, where millions and millions of people are forced to move from their places because of conflicts. So if we are done, not just for natural disasters, so if you don't address the political conflicts as the most powerful nations on earth, well, we will have more, and then we'll have more migration, and with all the problems that encompasses. And finally, I would say, to bring faces, stories of concrete people to the forum, to the G20 forum, is extremely necessary, because otherwise, what are you discussing about? And bring and because their stories are the stories who will allow us to change a narrative that is distant from people's reality. A narrative of, for example, that economic growth is the only thing that matters. No, economic growth has to be, or needs to be, needs to go hand in hand with decent work, with health, with well-being in general. So all those things are based on the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. So it's not just the faith are talking about, but what the faith-based communities and religions are proposing are concrete channels to implement the SDGs that all countries have agreed to fulfill. So even if it is for self-interest, you're saying, oh, hold on a minute, these religions are helping us to do what we have to do, or we have committed to do, that is ultimately the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals.
Do you have any specific takeaways after participating in the G20 Interfaith Forum?
I have so many takes away after participating of this important event. One I suppose is the confirmation that that we have been enslaved in this idea that progress or development is merely economic or material progress, and that has stopped us to rethink the notion of development in a more holistic way, as the United Nations have been proposing for the last 20 years, but as the Catholic Church has been saying for the last 50 years. And I think after this event I have confirmed that this is the way forward, that most people agree with that, people with faith and people with no faith. So this is quite optimistic, and also another takeaway is the fact that we cannot implement the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals without the participation of the civil society, but particularly of religions and faith communities. I know that in the media, faith communities are always causing trouble, but actually they are agents of good transformation and change. And I heard so many good testimonies about what things are going on, particularly the way they work in partnerships with others, which is a good model for nations, for the G20, that they are struggling to generate good partnerships. So please see that religions we're talking about, Islam and Christianity and Judaism, they are working together. It's a good example of how countries can work together also. And finally, I would say, my last point is, the takeaway is, it's also about the gender justice and intergenerational justice. Normally, when we talk about religion, and probably rightly so, we think about gender discrimination, particularly on women. But today we heard an Islamic presenter working for gender justice globally and inside her own communities. And we heard also people from Caritas working about that. That is the development agency of the church. We heard the same from other Christian churches and even other smaller churches. So it's good news that different religions are working already alongside the international agenda in trying to promote equality among different genders, but also equality among different generations. I think it's so unfair that the next generations or young people will inherit a world that it will be a disaster, no? And to work with the youth for a different world is also a matter of justice. It's not just, okay, we love the young generations or we love our sons. It's a matter of justice. They don't deserve to inherit this kind of world, and we are responsible to work and ensure that that the word that we transmit to them is a better one and not a worse one.
In your view, why should G20 nations pay attention to the G20 Interfaith Forum?
In my view, G20 nations should pay attention to the Interfaith Forum, first because there are concrete proposals from religious leaders representing the millions of people in the world. Some of them are in these nations, some of them are outside these nations. But it's good to listen to the proposals about sustainable development, about inclusion, about inclusive finance, for example, and the way to address issues like climate change, migration, economic stability, and so on. And security, these things are key for the G20 nations. All faith organizations have proposals that is worth listening. Secondly, again, you cannot propose sustainable development, that is one of the titles of the G20 this year, without listening to people of faith. There are 80% of the world claim to believe in something beyond humanity, and these are the people you need to listen. And finally, the perspective that the Interfaith G20 Forum brings is the perspective of those who are marginalized, those who we don't listen to them normally. So it's an excellent opportunity as leaders of the G20 to listen to the marginalized people, to the voices of the marginalized. Because would you like to be remembered as somebody who had the opportunity to change the world and you couldn't? Because if you don't listen to the poor, there's no possible change.